Life Fixers. Hope you're having an awesome day. Are you ready to better understand yourself, your partner, and your marriage? Today, we are speaking to the podcast hosts of Disrupt the Everyday podcast, Brine and Tonya Hamilton. Thank you so much for being here. I am super excited to be speaking with you. You want to start by telling us how you guys met?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we actually jump into that, I just want to say thank you for having us on this platform, and we're excited to have the discussion with you as well.
There you go. Brian's really good at dates and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to hand this to him because I would butcher when it came to like dates and all that kind of stuff. So take it away.
Okay. All right. So yes, I'll do the origin story then. So we actually met back in 2005. One of my coworkers, a gentleman named Mark, we'd worked together for like a month, and he had asked me to be the best man in his wedding, which first that kind of surprised me because I figured maybe a lot of people just didn't want to do it. Like, I don't know why he was asking somebody who's only known for a month, but we did get along very well in the short time that we knew each other. So I agreed, got to meet his wife and his young son through that process. And his wife actually worked with Tonya part-time. They both worked a part-time job at a shelter for abused women and children. And then one day after she had come from work, I was over at their place, and she said to me, "I know the perfect person for you." And, she wanted to play matchmaker and hook us up. Tonya was a little bit reluctant, but eventually, she did get to the point where she gave her email. We exchanged emails, and our first conversation was September 28th of that year. We went on our first date on October 6th.
See, this is what I was talking about. You remember?
Yeah.
I
so
remember
what year
days.
is this? Just so we know, or like about how many years ago?
2005.
Okay. So
yeah, I have this weird thing where I remember dates.
Like how long you're together for, and yeah.
I have this weird thing where I remember dates. So back in when I was in grade 7, somebody had the first birthday that happened in grade 7 for that school year. I still remember. It was a girl named Crystal. Her birthday September 10th, and I still remember it to this day. Just
like literally right after school started.
Yeah. So now it's etched in my head. So I'm really good with dates for whatever reason. But yeah. Anyways, October 6th was our first date. We dated for less than 2 years before we got married. So our actual wedding date was in 2007 in August. So at this point we're coming up on that 16-year mark being together as a couple, and it's been over 14 years that we've been married.
Wow, congratulations. Okay, so how has your relationship changed? Like 16 years ago, or I would go even more than that, like right when you started from that first email all the way till now?
I would say it's definitely turned into like a partnership as well. So there's now with kids and like trying to figure that out. So we have 4 kids, and we have a 12-year-old son, twins that are 9, a boy and girl, and then a 5-year-old. Yeah. So, going back to that first maternity leave when it was just us and we were living our life, and, there's romance and all that kind of stuff, right? It's still there, but I always say it changed as soon as you add kids to the mix, because now it's not oh, well, I used to always do this, so you do that. No, we have to work together as partners to get to to make it to the end of the day, especially when we had the twins, right? Literally to survive and then to thrive as well. So I would definitely say that, and like just working together with common goals. And we had that at the beginning, but now we're more confident to share what it is we would like to see, what it is we would like to have changed, all that kind of stuff. Whereas at the beginning, you almost never want to say anything wrong because maybe you're fearful that, oh, is this going to be that first fight, right? Or is this going to be, now it's just like, no, let's be real. Let's be, honest and tell the other person what it is we need, right? And that's been going on for a while.
Yeah. And I think too, the one thing that you hear when their marriages don't work, you'll hear that people kind of grew apart. And I'd say we grew together because we got together very young. We were, I shouldn't say very young, but we were pretty young. We were 22 and 23 respectively. And, so just to save anybody the math, we're 38 and 39 now. But we've had all that time to go through, this different seasons of life together, from just being young and dating to getting married, having kids. going from renting a basement apartment to, owning a home. So, so we've got to go through all of those things together and everything that comes with that. So it's, we've definitely grown. I think like I said, we've grown together. We've definitely grown stronger together in a lot of areas in life, not just, not just the relationship, but the relationship obviously has, kind of really just flourished through everything that we've been through as a couple.
So you really think it helped you to get married young and grow, like you were both young, I guess, for lack of a better word, and you like grew together, like through marriage versus growing together each separately, and then let's say getting married at 30 or something.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, I think with that, I mean, hey, whatever works for you, right? But the younger you are, I mean, you, let's say, have less, you're not so stuck in your ways with my air quotation marks, right? And so this is what it is. And it is almost like you do evolve as you get older, but like Brine said, you get to do that together, right?
Yeah. I say if I had been single till, I was 35, so that would only be 4 years ago, it would, my focus would definitely be different. I'm sure I would have established a lot of things on my own, and then trying to merge with somebody else who's, assuming that it was somebody at the same age, I think it would be a lot more difficult. I guess knowing my personality, I know it would have been more difficult for me to be getting married now versus getting married 14 years ago.
Yeah. And there's no like right or wrong about it. It's like, as long as you take the time to really work on yourself and like grow at whatever point your marriage will work. Because if you get married at like 22 with them, like thing, then it's not gonna happen. But like you said, I think that like people like still stay, I guess, like immature, if you want to say, when they get married. But as soon as they have kids, all of a sudden there's like, you have to be responsible, because now you're responsible for, like when you're married, your spouse could take care of themselves. But when you have to care for another soul, it literally changes everything.
It's so true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, certain parts of it, I guess, certain parts of being a parent and being married just force you to grow up, where, I can say I know some people in their 30s, dare I say even into their 40s, who are still pretty immature and maybe they're still not ready for marriage. So I guess it depends. I think again, I was always family focused, so getting married young was something that I figured was always going to be the case for me. And I guess it really just, and like you said, you kind of hit on it when we had our first kid. That's when I was really I had that kind of shift in my head where I was like, okay, this is real. Right? I'm responsible for another human being now. So it does really force you to mature. It should anyways. I don't think it doesn't necessarily with everybody, but I know it did for me.
Yeah. So did you come from, like you said, you're really family focused. Like, was your parents like good role models? Not like to put anyone down here if not, but just to like understand where you're coming from. Were they really good role models? Did you have someone else who was, or like this was completely something that you had to build from scratch?
Yeah. So growing up, like my parents were together in a very healthy relationship, like our whole childhood, even into my young or my teenage years. Unfortunately, right after we got married, they did separate and then divorce. And so that was around like that 25-year mark. So up until then, things had been going great. So they were a great example to see. And, it was interesting because there were a lot of couples around that mark that were separating, right? For whatever the reason was. But growing up, I just knew, okay, I want to meet somebody and be married and be with them forever and just make it work, right? So that's my story.
So you're not like worried that like by the time it comes to the 25-year mark that like something might happen, because you're like, no, this is forever.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not like, I hope it's forever and I'm not, whatever, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I totally know what you mean. And it's interesting because like there's a lot of people whose parents were in that same situation. It's like, oh man, right? You have those fears, but then I think as time goes on, you just make it work.
Yeah. Like you said, growing closer together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say because I'm actually the dates person, it was closer to 30 years. They had actually celebrated their 25th anniversary pretty much a few weeks after we had gotten married. So we actually, at our wedding, we actually had like we had a cake for them we kind of surprised them with this, but 25th year anniversary cake. Yeah, at our wedding, because it was
You
less than
guys
a
are
month after.
nice. Like, let's shift the spotlight onto them for a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I guess I'll kind of talk about my family a little bit. And so my family, yeah, my parents were together until it was the same idea. They had a long marriage. They were together for, I believe it was 22 years of marriage, and right around the time I was 20 is when they got divorced. Now, we were essentially a blended family. I was the only kid that my parents had together, but they both came into the relationship with other kids. So I do have 5 older siblings. But yeah, like from growing up, like I learned, I guess how to be a man and how to be a father from my dad. He did set a good example in a lot of ways. He was a good provider. He was a hard worker. So, I really did learn that from him. And he put, I guess he put everyone else first, which is, depending on how you look at it, can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, depending on the circumstances and the specific
Yeah, I
situations.
think if it gets taken too extreme, it's not good. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah. So no, I did learn a lot of those things from him. And my mom, she did have some health issues, so she was at home most of the time. So I did have her in the house. I could go home for lunch, which was always nice as well. But yeah, no, we had growing up, we had to overcome a lot of challenges as a family, but we just kind of had a really strong family unit within the group of us that was there. I'm just kind of having a nostalgic feeling here, thinking of some of the things that we actually came through as a family, and it did make us stronger going through some of those challenges. The one thing I kind of glazed over was when we met. I had actually went through a divorce, so I had gotten married really young. Obviously, that marriage didn't work out, but I took a lot of the lessons that I learned from that and really applied that to making sure I knew what I wanted going into the next marriage. So with us getting married, it could, because you had asked this of Tonya, but no, it was never a situation in my mind where divorce was an option. I figured, okay, we're going to work really hard and we're going to make this work. I think for us, and you can correct me if you disagree here, but I think for us it's a situation where we've been through so much now together as a couple that I don't know, I can't really anticipate too much that we couldn't make it through, or I don't think we would put each other through those things. Mm-hmm. I guess is
and then
where
I think
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, and I also think only God knows. Hopefully, it's not anything crazier than what we've gone through, but we have the tools to also get through it, right? Yeah. So I think that's a big thing. But so if I believe that we'd be able to figure it out.
I love that so much. I love your attitude and your mindset. It's so awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from Jim Rohn is like, don't ask it for it to be easier, ask for you to be stronger. So totally coming from you guys, you see it. So I'm curious, what do you wish you would have known before you got married?
I personally would say more of the financial aspect, and how to really build that legacy for your family and for as a couple as well. I mean, we do now, but hey, any extra time that you can add on to that piece, that would be amazing, right? And yeah, just the whole savings factor and all that kind of stuff. Instead of, figuring all that out mid 30s, wouldn't it be amazing if you had it most of that figured out right in your mid 20s, right? It's an extra 10 years there.
So. Yeah. Every day makes a difference with these things. So
yeah,
if you would have known as soon as you got married, totally. Yeah. I think that is one very big thing that is lacking in our education system, and even in just society, of being able to talk about these things and figure out what happened. So hopefully that will change. So by the time your kids get married, it will be a little bit different. What's it for you, Brine?
Well, I would also agree with that, but I would add for myself, I really wish I would have looked for mentors, and not just necessarily because the way I think of mentorship is that you can have mentors for any area in life, not just professionally. So I wish I would have taken some time to be around people who were already fathers, already husbands, and tried to learn from them. because again, like kind of learning that stuff later, and being younger. And I think a lot of us have this attitude when we're younger, where you think you can just you can figure out anything, you can do anything on your own. Whereas, as I've gotten a bit older, I've realized if I can find someone to help me, or if I can learn from somebody and get a shortcut that way, it's going to be a lot more productive and a lot more beneficial.
Yeah. That's for sure. Right. Like you said, it's a shortcut instead of you having to try to waste all those time and be like things. So, okay. One more question about how your relationship changed. Ever since you started that podcast, how has that changed your relationship?
I think I feel like it's actually been quite beneficial. I mean, we started during like in the middle of one of our lockdowns with COVID here, right?
Like everyone.
Yeah, I know, right? I feel like where we are, ours are always way longer than everybody else's. But that definitely helped, because it was like, oh my goodness, these evenings, like, what are we doing? And we do like to be productive. It's one thing to be busy, but if you can be productive with your time, that's amazing, right? So that definitely helped, because then the evenings felt like, okay, we weren't just sitting around doing nothing. It also, I find, has been beneficial because it is a business, and we were able to pick up and use our gifts and what we're our strengths, right? So I'm strong at this. Okay, this is yours. Do it. And Brine does this, right? And so we are able to divide and conquer that way. And for the most part, I think like we don't really have too much to say about the other person's strengths. It's like, okay, you got this, and I know you're going to deal with it, so go with it and run, right? Yeah, I think that's definitely been the biggest things.
Yeah, it's just really shown us that we can work together in a setting outside of our marriage as well. So that's been beneficial, just with, again, some of the things that we were planning to do. It's good to see that we can function working as a team professionally. So that's been helpful, and we get to do it together. The one thing, and I'm sure you can appreciate this about podcasting, is that you get to learn so much. And I'm one who's really big on personal development, but now I get to do it with Tonya.
So much fun. Literally my favorite part about podcasting.
Yeah, all this great information, you learn, and then you use it, and then the other person knows now where you got that from. It's like, oh yeah, that was from the other day when we were talking about dealing with conflict or whatever, right?
Yeah. So do you see yourself like working together in other areas, like out of marriage, because of this, or not especially?
Oh, well, I guess we're trying to take on some investment property like stuff, so that also is business. And it's knowing your strengths, what you're capable of, what you may be at your max with. So it was something we wanted to do, but at the time it was like the middle of the summer. We were in the middle of renovations with our own home. That's like a part-time job, just figuring out what you want, who you need to call. And we wanted to jump on the investment bandwagon thing, right? So I had said to Brine, I'm like, you know what? I'm at my max. You're going to take over this. I trust you. You know what we want to do. We've talked about it. So you go do it. Let me know what you find. And I'll try to watch the viewings and stuff like that. Right. But I knew what I was able to do, and I didn't want to take anything else on. So it's nice to be able to have that, again, that partnership where it's like, you already know what I want because we've talked about it. So just do it, and trusting that.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, there's that trust factor really, really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would agree. Yeah, it's really just shown us that we can function that way. We, again, over 16 years, we've been able to, I guess, kind of organically just understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. So a lot of times it's not even really a conversation. We just naturally know who's going to do what in these different scenarios.
Okay, well, you guys sound awesome. Is there something in your relationship that's a challenge?
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
How much time do you have?
I was going to say, like, we never come across, and that's the biggest thing, right? We're definitely not perfect. There's so many flaws and stuff like that. It's just all about working through that. right? Where would ours be?
Communication is definitely one.
Yeah.
Like our communication is good, but there's a lot of times where it could be better.
Yeah.
And that creates some challenges for us. I think part of it is too, because we've been together for so long, we kind of naturally assume certain things when we probably shouldn't.
Mhm.
So the communication, we could probably over communicate to do a better job with that.
So what would be, let's say, if you were giving yourself advice, which is really for all the listeners, but what would be like a communication like tip or advice that you heard from someone else that you want to remind yourself that the listeners could also add into their lives?
Well, there's a couple of things. I would say one thing for sure is, because of the way that you feel about the person is going to impact how you communicate. So always assume good intentions. So, I'll throw myself under the bus for an example. I'll say if I'm the one who made a mistake, I guess what this would look like is if Tonya is approaching me about this, she's going to assume that my intentions were good and I just made a mistake or did something stupid, versus going in with the intention of upsetting her, because that's going to impact how you communicate. So that's the approach I try to take. I try to assume good intentions. And again, just over communicating. I know, like I just said, we don't do this enough, so we're definitely not perfect in this area. But there's a podcast I listen to called Manager Tools, and one of the things that the host would always say on there is, and because again, it's focused on management, if you tell your staff something 7 times, half of them will say they heard it once. So it doesn't hurt. I
love that.
But it's so true though. Managing people, oh man, it's definitely true. So it doesn't hurt to get the message out there more than once, and just understanding your audience, I guess, in that sense as well.
Yeah.
I would say scheduling. That can be a big one. We're still trying to figure out. We really need to like get a joint calendar system going on. I know there's lots, and we've talked about them.
So what she's saying is somebody needs to actually access the Gmail accounts that I've set up for our podcast website, and they'd be able to see everything that I have scheduled. But that's
there you go.
Story.
So I guess you know what I'll be doing after this. But scheduling, right? So when you
over communicating, how many times have you told her?
Oh yeah, and I'm the procrastinator. So can you tell? So when you add in like scheduling time, 6 people, right? Work, all these other commitments and stuff like that, it can be a little bit like, oh, I'm doing this, and then there'll be the, oh, well, we have this scheduled, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, something's got to give. That's a big one, I would say. And just, yeah. Communication always, it gets busy, right? So you have 4 kids running around. So if it's one of those, oh, but I told you, oh, well, did you tell me when you walked in from work or when you walked in from somewhere, the kids are running around?
It's over,
right? So that, there's always hiccups there, but you just make it work. We're good at problem solving. That's definitely a big thing, right? So a lot of stuff comes up and we got to figure it out, even how are we going to get a child here when we need to be somewhere else, right? You just, yeah.
Find a way to get it.
You guys got a growth mindset. I love it. So what are your kids? First of all, how old are your kids?
Yeah. So 12 is our oldest, 9-year-old, the twins are 9, and then 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And just to kind of answer this one as well, because it'll probably be the next question or somebody's thinking it, but there's one of the 9-year-olds is a girl, the other 3 are boys.
Okay. I can imagine what type of girl she is.
Yeah, I know, right?
But so much fun, right? Yeah. Okay, so what do your kids think of you? I know they're still like a little bit young, but they're not babies. They for sure like observe you and have all their assumptions about their parents. And what do they think of them?
So the first thing I'll say, if we are like having a disagreement and, there's really no yelling, like we can disagree, but we try not to like yell at each other, things like that. Right. Now, if we do that, and we do, like, we'll do it in front of the kids because I think it's healthy. They need to learn how to, when conflict arises, how to deal with it, problem solve, and move on, right? And I think the last time it happened, our one son was like, are you guys going to divorce? And I'm like, but that was like nothing. You know what I mean? Like that was just, it was probably something with renovations because that was like, insane. But it was like, no, we just weren't agreeing on what we should put in the kitchen, let's say, right? And he's like, oh, okay. So yeah, I had to say, no, it's just because you have a disagreement or you're trying to problem solve out loud and that kind of stuff, it doesn't mean that we're going to separate. And they know there are people in our family, in our circles that, that is their thing. So I think it's at the forefront of their mind. But then they would also say, oh, you guys hold hands and hug and kiss, and they see that and think it's gross, but it's great.
That's kid stuff. Yeah.
and for the record, they all agree that I'm the funnier one of the two.
Yes, they definitely do. Yeah.
Okay.
So his dad jokes are for real.
Yeah, but yeah, I really like the line problem solving out loud. It's like we're not fighting, we're problem solving. It's like it changes like the whole perspective of it. Obviously, there are different ways to problem solve and we could do it in things, but that's really, really good. Okay, so here is an interesting one. I always like to hear what people have to say. What is one ritual that you do that keeps your relationship amazing? Maybe you don't like call it a ritual, but like it's
yeah. No, I got it. When you said that, the first thing that came to mind was date nights, regular date nights. That's been like all along, and we are now at that stage where our oldest can babysit for a short periods of time. So this is like next level amazing, right? Because we can pay him every once in a while, but it doesn't need to be all the time or the same amount as all the other babysitters, right?
Right.
So that's been something even through COVID. We also do like a date night swap with our neighbor, which is amazing. Our neighbors are great. So they have 4 kids as well. And so we started this probably 2 years ago. So I will go over in the evening, like once the kids are in bed, which is even better. And then they go out for a date. So they, you don't have to pay the babysitter. And then we swap, and then they'll watch our kids usually the following week. And then we get to go out. So you save on that because we all know babysitting costs are pricey. But then it also doesn't need to be anything special either, right? Like you don't need to be going to the fanciest restaurant. You can just go grab a coffee. Like sometimes we'll just go and really do a couple errands and hang out in the car. Right. And just knowing we're away from the house, we have that time to have uninterrupted conversations and stuff like that. That definitely has helped, especially during COVID, because for me being the one who's predominantly with the kids during the day and stuff like that, it was like you almost felt like you're on 24/7. And then sometimes even taking advantage of the fact that we're home all day together. And I've said this before, it's like we're all under the same roof, but sometimes feeling disconnected. Because it's like, hey, okay, talk at dinner, and then we all just keep going, trying to get all these kids into bed and stuff like that. And then the nighttime comes, and some nights I was just like, okay, I'm done.
Completely. My energy is like zero.
Like I don't want to talk. I just want to sit and do nothing. Right. So that's, I think, being our biggest thing, just for that connection piece.
Wow. I like that a lot. Okay. So before we get to our final question, one that I ask everyone, where else can Life Pixers connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So for myself personally, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm on most of the platforms. So if you wanted to connect with me directly, it's really easy. It's Brine, Brine Hamilton. I've not been able to find another Brine Hamilton. So if you search that anywhere, you'll likely have my picture come up in a search. But and Tonya's also on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram now. If you want to check out our podcast, Disrupt the Everyday. Again, I'll just say the title one more time: Disrupt the Everyday. You can check us out at disrupttheeveryday.com, on Instagram at disrupt_the_everyday. And we're pretty active on there as well. The Instagram's, well, I think we're pretty active. Tonya is the one who kind of handles Instagram, but yeah, you can check us out on pretty much any of the platforms. We have a Facebook group. We have a LinkedIn page as well. Did I miss anything?
Nope. You're good. I was going to say Facebook, but you
stuck that in. Yeah, we'll all be in the show notes, so everyone will be able to go and find it all and listen to your podcast because it's so good.
Thank you.
Now, for our final question is, how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, trust, or intimacy?
Whoa, okay. You want to take this one?
So
Hey, you're both going to answer this one.
Oh.
so I'll start it off and give you some time to think about it. But I would say that some of the key factors of that relationship would be, again, communication would be strong, as would be the ability to both engage in and handle conflict without negatively impacting some of the other areas. So I think it's a big thing that's key, and Tonya touched on it earlier, but just understanding, and this is what we try to demonstrate to our kids, that conflict is a real thing in any relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's professional, whether it's with your friends. Conflict is a natural thing, and it's something that you need to be able to address in any type of relationship if you want that relationship to be successful.
And I would say honor, respect, definitely top two. A relationship that allows both people to grow separately and then grow together. Those are the biggest ones. And just knowing that we're imperfect, and we have this pillow, and it's pretty much like we're both imperfect, but what is it?
Is a marriage is, I'll paraphrase, but basically that a marriage is bringing together of two imperfect people.
Right.
And I forget what the rest of it
There's
says,
no perfect marriage, just two imperfect people trying to make something amazing. Let's just put it that way. And
Well,
I don't think I'm
that.
just supposed to use that word. Or no, amazing wasn't part of it.
No,
There you
amazing
go.
wasn't one of them.
We're good. Managed not to use any of the words.
There you go.
Oh, you guys are incredible. I love your energy. I love your vibe. I love what you guys do. So thank you so much for being here. This was really fun.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you so much.
That's all for this episode of the Life Fix University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.